There's a reason certain stories refuse to disappear. Across cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years, we find the same unsettling theme, and that there are beings who are not human, arriving suddenly, bringing great knowledge, reshaping human civilization, and then vanishing, leaving humanity changed. These stories are often dismissed as primitive superstition, but myths don't survive for millennia unless they're carrying something essential. These myths may not be literal in the way modern minds demand, but they are rarely meaningless, and when the same story appears again and again under different names in different lands, it stops being fantasy and starts looking like memory. One of the clearest versions of this memory appears in a text that was deliberately removed from the biblical canon, and that is the Book of Enoch. Enoch tells of the Watchers, beings who descended to earth, not to destroy humanity, but to teach it. The Watchers revealed metallurgy, agriculture, astronomy, medicine, and what the text calls the enchantments of the world to humanity. And because of these teachings, human civilization accelerated. But maybe it happened too fast? The Watchers did not create humanity, but they interfered with it. And according to the story, that interference came at a cost, because the world destabilized and violence increased whilst boundaries were crossed. The sin of the Watchers wasn't evil intent, it was premature knowledge given without wisdom, restraint, or consent. This theme is important because it mirrors something very modern in our world. In ancient Sumerian texts, we encounter another name, the Anunnaki. Often translated as those who came from the heavens, the Anunnaki were not described as creators, but as rulers, judges, and architects of order. The Anunnaki established hierarchy in our world and organized the human civilization. It is said they governed humanity from above. In modern times, much of what people think they know about the Anunnaki comes from one man, Zecharia Sitchin. Sitchin reintroduced these ancient names to the public, but he reframed them. His version leaned heavily toward extraterrestrials, planets, gold mining, and literal space travel. The problem with this is not the curiosity it creates, but the narrowing of the human perception. Many scholars have disputed Sitchin's translations, but more importantly, his version externalized the story. It kept humanity looking outward to the stars instead of inward toward power, control, and memory. So the real question isn't whether Sitchin was right or wrong, it's this. Why did that version spread so easily? Sometimes truth isn't suppressed, it's actually diluted. And here's the distinction that changes everything. Creators bring life, whilst architects shape systems. And these ancient texts consistently suggest that humanity already existed, but was modified, organized, constrained, and guided. And this preserves something crucial. Humanity is not a failed experiment. Humanity is not a mistake. And there is something within us all that could not be engineered. Call it consciousness. Call it soul. Call it the divine spark even. So, whatever interfered with humanity could shape bodies, societies, and systems, but clearly it could not manufacture meaning itself. That spark remains the unresolved problem for every control system, including what humanity faces today. You see, once you see the pattern, it becomes impossible to unsee. Knowledge is controlled by elites, with a priesthood or ruling class acting as intermediaries. Fear is always used to justify obedience, because human autonomy is treated as a threat. And this isn't unique to ancient times, because it's a recurring structure. And when that structure destabilizes, the same solution appears again and again. A reset. The flood story appears everywhere, be it from Sumer, the Bible, India, or the Americas. All different names, but the same function. The flood isn't just a story of divine anger, it's actually a system reset. When control fails, and when knowledge spreads too far, and when the system destabilizes, our memory is wiped, and civilization restarts again. This cycle continues. Every civilization seems to carry the trauma of a reset it barely remembers, and that alone should make us pause. This episode isn't about believing in watchers or Anunnaki. It's about recognizing the interference, because for the first time in history, humanity is once again being reshaped not by mythic beings, but by its own creations. Artificial intelligence, genetic intervention, digital identity, behavioral control systems. So, the same question returns. Is humanity being guided or managed? Is this evolution or another form of interference? And most importantly, has this happened before? If humanity has been interfered with in the past, and if our development has been guided, restricted, reset, and reshaped, then the most dangerous thing is not ignorance. It's remembering, because a being that remembers its own nature is no longer easy to govern. In the next episode, we'll turn inward to the mechanisms that keep control alive, not through force, but through the human mind itself. Because the most effective prison is the one we all help maintain. This is the Cosmic Lie series. I am not creating these videos to replace one belief with another, but to recognize patterns and return choice to the individual. If this resonates, stay close. Please subscribe, please like and share, because this story is only just unfolding.